All businesses, even those with a healthy order book, can suffer from cash flow problems. Monitoring your finances can help you spot potential difficulties and prevent them getting out of hand. We're going to look at cash flow forecasting and explain why even an expanding business can have cash flow gaps. Then we'll tell you about the early warning signs that your customers might be in difficulty. Finally, we'll look at a major risk of business growth. Cash flow management is a vital part of your business cycle, as it helps to keep your business viable and reduces the risk of being unable to complete all the work you've taken on, also known as overtrading. In simple terms, cash flow is the money coming in and out of your business. You need to monitor what you're owed and chase and get the cash in regularly. You also need to monitor what you're spending using cash flow forecasts or projections. Being able to spot potential cash flow gaps will help you to plan ahead. For example, can you have a sales push, chase late payments, or even think about additional borrowing to cover a gap? So, what kind of business problem will typically affect your business's cash flow? Well, typical issues include having a lot of payments becoming overdue at the same time. Maybe you're finding it difficult to pay your bills or suppliers. This could also mean you can't get stock or you're struggling to fulfill orders. Times of business growth can also make extra demands on your cash. Think about what you'd need to do, for example, if you suddenly had a really big order. Would you need to take on extra staff, buy new equipment, or even move to larger premises? So how can cash flow forecasts help? Your cash flow forecast should show your actual income and spending against what you originally planned to earn and spend. Depending on your business, you could update your figures weekly or monthly. Updating your figures like this will also bring to light any variances, and you need to think about what's caused them. For instance, is it a seasonal peak or dip, or something happening in the wider economy? Sometimes something like rise in the price of essentials like groceries or fuel will cause a near-instant slowdown in consumer spending, for example. New factors can also cause you to stray from your forecasts. By this, we mean things like a new product or competitor appearing in your marketplace, or you receiving an unexpectedly large order. Now we've looked at some of the issues surrounding cash flow management, let's think about how you can spot potential problems and deal with them before they affect your cash flow. Regularly monitoring your payments received will help you to spot any changes in customer payment patterns. You could keep a note of the number of days after invoicing that each customer pays you. After a while, patterns should emerge, like the average payment time across all your customers and highlighting those who regularly pay late and by how long. If a customer has generally paid at 30 days after your invoice date, but then pays 3 or 4 invoices 50 or 60 days after invoicing, it could be a sign that something has changed for them. It's always worth politely reminding them of your payment terms, or contacting them to see whether a different payment method would suit them, maybe 2 staged payments rather than 1 final payment, for instance. This would reduce your risk as well as helping your cash flow. Less obvious signs that customers might be in difficulty include things like sending you incorrectly completed or unsigned checks, or asking you to send another invoice, which might be delaying tactics. The old checks in the post excuse should be on its way out as check use declines. But if most of your payments are by check, think about encouraging other methods like online payment. You could also think about taking a deposit up front as part payment, which will reduce your risk. Some signs will give you a much stronger indication that customers are in difficulty. This will include not responding to your reminders or phone calls, or being permanently in a meeting when you call. You might even hear rumours about them from staff, customers, or competitors. You can also view published accounts of limited companies to see how they're doing. The more you can do to reduce the risk of late payment from the outset, the better.
Late or non-payment can seriously endanger your business. There are things you should do to reduce the risk. First, you should always carry out credit checks before you supply goods or services. You can use a credit agency to do this, or you can do your own research. Always state your payment terms and conditions clearly on all your invoices. You can include a statement about what you will do in the event of late payment, usually about charging interest once a payment becomes so many days overdue. Of course, you should also send out invoices promptly when you've done the work or delivered the goods. Use email or first-class post for speed. The sooner you get them out, the sooner the payment will become due. Now, if you don't already, why not think about using a computerized credit management system? It doesn't need to be complicated, and it will help you keep track of customers' accounts and generate reminders when payments are late. Next, you should define and implement your collection strategy. This sets out stages you'll go through to collect payment. For example, a few days after raising an invoice, you could start monitoring its progress. Initially, you should inquire whether the customer has received it, and then if there are any queries or problems. Later, you should check whether payment has been authorized and when it will be in your bank account. You could also set yourself monthly payment targets and ensure that you or staff can devote enough time to collecting payments. Think about offering online payment or using an automated bank payment system to really speed things up. It will also reduce your own admin and the time spent dealing with cash or checks. Finally, for your own peace of mind, you could take out credit insurance, which covers you if you have a bad debt due to a customer going into insolvency. Many policies will offer additional legal expenses insurance, which covers the costs of recovering debts through the courts.
Following up all your payments owed is a major part of good cash flow management. Now let's look at the financial risks when growing a business. It might seem odd, but business growth brings with it a number of risks that threaten financial stability and even survival. Overtrading is quite common for young and rapidly growing businesses. It happens when a business takes on work that it can't cope with, either because of the demand on its working capital or lack of resource to actually do the work. The effect on cash flow can be extremely serious. The main cause is the sudden need to outlay a lot more cash long before the additional income is due to be paid to you. This is usually things like paying suppliers, the increased wages bill, or the need for new equipment or larger premises. If you begin to run out of cash because of this type of extra spending, your business could fail even with a large order on the books. Stock, sales and production cycles can cause overtrading, particularly in manufacturing businesses. Stock control methods, such as just-in-time ordering, can help to reduce the demand on your working capital. Effective debt management and credit control can really help to minimize the risk. If you get paid quickly, you'll have more cash available to pay suppliers and staff. You could also look at all areas of business spending to see where you can tighten up and get more control over your cash flow. For example, can you lease or rent rather than buying equipment and machinery? You should always consider the options before committing to major expenditure, such as at times of business growth. Consider all your business outgoings and think about whether you can get a better deal from suppliers, utility companies, or your landlord. Anything you can do to improve your cash flow will benefit the business. We've illustrated this with a simple example of how overtrading can easily happen.
My name is Richard Sullivan. I'm the Managing Director of Paxton Restoration Ltd, and we're a sash window restoration specialist. That means we undertake the repair and remedial works to sash windows in period buildings. We were in quite our early days really when we discovered what it can actually mean to incur some cash flow problems. And we'd started off in a very organic, natural way, working on very small contracts. And we had the opportunity inevitably to come and work on some larger buildings, commercial buildings, which we seized as an opportunity for growth. And we soon realized that we were, in terms of cash flow, putting all our eggs in one basket, in that we had committed all our resources, all our staff, our human resources, and suddenly everything within the working capital framework of the company was all involved into one project. And then suddenly we found we were very reliant on those guys being very good and making sure they remunerated us quickly and on time. Otherwise we were running out of cash flow options. We had an experience whereby people were a little slow to pay up, and we had to go chasing, and these guys were dragging their heels. And during the interim we found ourselves short of working capital for the business. It was a good sharp learning lesson, I think, in possibly taking on a contract that's too big whilst being under-resourced and perhaps a little bit inexperienced about negotiating contracts fully. Well, I think some of the warning signs when you come towards the end of a contract is that people start to raise issues which you haven't heard about hitherto. They'll start raising problems which have been not mentioned during the main body of the contract, and you'd wish that issues had been raised at the time when all the resources were there on site available, but they only turn up afterwards. And then when people are more difficult to get hold of, they're not giving you prompt and full responses to your requests by email or letter as to what's actually required to complete the contract, and generally making life difficult. You feel that people may be stalling before meeting their obligations to remit against your invoices. In terms of taking steps to make sure that the customers can pay, we want them to make sure they're happy along the way. So we always check with them that they're happy with the schedule of works. If there are any changes, we note that and make sure we've got it agreed and documented there'll be changes. And we'll always get to the end of the contract and we'll make sure that they are content and that they've documented that fact as well. I think if something like this happened again, then we would just make sure that we didn't overextend ourselves and put all our eggs in one basket, which was the situation with this contract. Whoever is your direct customer, you ought to check them out and talk about the contract terms with them, and to find out if they are happy to abide by your terms or if they have stipulations under which they're only prepared to do business on a certain basis. And the nuts and bolts are really about the stage payments, if that's possible, when you're able to invoice and when you're able to see remittances for those invoices. Those things are key.
Overtrading can happen to any business, but is especially common for young and growing businesses. Being aware of the pitfalls that poor cash flow can bring about should help you avoid them. Keep an eye on your forecasts and your actual income and spending. Be quick and thorough with credit control and chasing payments. Finally, be aware that sudden growth can cause new problems if there are sudden new demands on your cash.